So welcome back to episode 8 of the Football Minded podcast. So as promised last week, we're going to talk about the Asia Cup, the Afcon, and we're going to also be recapping all the major transfers that have happened so far in this transfer window. Um, so yeah, like from the ones that we haven't talked about last week or that weren't confirmed last week, there's Jadon Sancho who's now confirmed.
Yeah,
He played well in his debut. He got an assist, which
yeah,
is good to see considering he hasn't played first team football in a while.
yeah. Quite impressive on his return to Dortmund. Proud of him, especially considering he hasn't been playing for a while. So proud of him there that he's excelling again in the Bundesliga. Hopefully, it continues up until the end of the season. I would like to see him return to Dortmund as well on
Yeah,
a permanent
permanently, yeah,
deal
for sure.
in time for next season. However, now the busiest club we could say in this transfer window has been Tottenham in the Premier League. They've brought in two major signings. They've signed now Romanian center back Radu Dragusin from Genoa for 25 million, and they also brought in striker Timo Werner. He's returning to the Premier League. He's going to another London club now, and he was brought in on loan with a buy option of 18 million, from what I've read on Market. And however, now they have lost Eric Dyer on loan for the remainder of the season. That includes a 4 million euro fee. So they brought him. So Bayern Munich bring him in. It's a little bit of depth, especially considering they've been having quite a few injuries. So
Yeah,
at least they'll allow him to play more in the Bundesliga, and they can rest some of their players for the Champions League, and they
exactly.
can manage their players better in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we needed, depth in the midfield, and at center back, he could play both. So
Yeah,
pretty much like two birds, one stone situation here.
exactly.
So I'm very happy with that. Other than that, there's been
One
actually,
more signing I was thinking of that happened that was
yeah,
officialized today actually, and that was Hannibal Mejbri,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Tunisian international from Manchester United. He's going on loan now to Sevilla for with a buy option. Sorry, a buy option of about 20 million euros.
That's really good.
So that's
That's a good
possible that
sign.
he could end up becoming a permanent Sevilla player come summertime. So those are the major transfers over the past week since our last episode. There are bound to be more,
Yeah, yeah.
considering now we're entering the
Nothing too
second
too
half.
crazy though.
Yeah,
Like
considering we're in the second half though, closer to the deadline, there'll definitely be more. At least hoping. We're
Well,
hoping
for
for
sure.
such.
But then again, it's January. We're not going to see
Yeah,
we're not going to see major players move.
and it's
Most
not like
likely, at
last
least.
year, with the World Cup and all of that. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year was bound to be an anomaly. Like it most likely would not happen to that same extent. But I wouldn't say that I don't want it. I would definitely love to see it happen.
Well, for sure. But then again, it's January. Clubs don't really like to take too much
Of
risk in
course,
January. Yeah, so that pretty much concludes the transfers. There's not been anything too crazy. Just thought we'd throw it in there. Keep you guys up to date.
for sure.
Um, Now moving on to Afcon. So we've already had the first set of games. Who are your standouts? Who do you think is gonna go? Give me your top five.
Okay, sounds good. So, based on the few games that we saw, we haven't even seen all the teams play yet. However, the team that we have seen play that has stood out the most in terms of their performance has definitely been Senegal. How they won 3-0, and that's been the biggest score so far this tournament. And with their 3-0 victory against Gambia, that puts them in pole position not only to advance to the next round, but now also to finish first in their group, in a group that I believe also includes Cameroon and Guinea. So it's not an easy group.
Yeah.
But Cameroon and Guinea also drew, I believe, 1-1. So it's definitely going to be a toss up for that second place position. I think Senegal they're my favorites, especially as defending champions. They still have all that star power.
I think they're a lock for first place in that group. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, for the group for sure. And I think they can go all the way. They're my favorites to go all the way. Maybe Morocco is a close one with them. And I've seen now, for example, on ESPN, they have them as their favorites, which I mean, I can understand. It's not only a hype from the World Cup, they are a legitimate contending team.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. They have some quality players. Sadio Mane, Koulibaly, Mendy at goal. They have quality pretty much all
For
over the
Senegal,
pitch.
yeah. Yeah, Morocco with Ashraf Hakimi, Yassine Bounou, Hakim Ziyech. However, Ziyech and also Sofiane Boufal, they haven't really been playing well at the club level. And even Azzedine Ounahi, he's been struggling finding that consistent playing time and putting up those consistent performances.
But then again, we see players all the time. They struggle in club level, but when it comes to their
Exactly.
country, they tend to turn it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Morocco is definitely one of the favorites. You can never count them out.
For sure not. However, and there's also a few others we can't count out. So for example, we cannot count out the hosts, Cote
For sure.
d'Ivoire. I mean, we saw them play in their opening match against Guinea-Bissau. I mean, Guinea-Bissau is not a major football country, but Cote d'Ivoire were dominant all around. Seko Fofana, it only took him 4 minutes to score the opening goal at the tournament. So that was pretty impressive. And I mean, Seko Fofana is one of their top players these days. They're not as Cote d'Ivoire is not as good as they used to be, but they're still one of the top five, I would say, at the very least, top five.
Yeah, I think so as well. Given that they're hosts, honestly, I think I put them a little bit higher, maybe top three. I do have them as one of my favorites to go all the way. Um, but yeah, like I think Senegal, I think they're my favorites for the tournament as well. Morocco probably second. Um, Probably Ivory Coast in third. I'm gonna have them in third. Now Nigeria,
I have
they've
them
been
third actually, and Cote
yeah.
d'Ivoire fourth. Yeah.
Me, I have them. See, they've been struggling lately, right? But you can never count them out. They have so much quality all over the pitch,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
you know again you just can't count them out. I have them as my fourth, and then for fifth spot, I think Egypt would be. They're more of a dark horse, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but yeah,
have Egypt as well, number five.
number five, yeah,
Yeah, Egypt is number five. How I think what would differ between both of us is that third and fourth. I have Nigeria as third. I know that Victor Boniface and Ndidi are not going to be aren't at the tournament, and they drew against Equatorial Guinea. I thought that was going to be a certain win. However, it didn't happen. Victor Osimhen did at least provide the goal for Nigeria, so we got that. We were able to see that. However, Nigeria sometimes have tend to underperform, especially over the past few years.
yeah.
And also
Given the quality that they have, like on paper,
yeah,
they're easily a top three squad in
yeah,
Afcon, if not higher. You
yeah.
know,
Well, you know who they remind me of? They remind me of Argentina during the mid 2010s, where
yeah, I could see that.
their attack was just powerful. It was incredibly powerful, but then the rest of they were lacking in all other positions. And that's pretty much what Nigeria is these days. Their midfield is not as great as their forwards.
For sure.
And then I mean their defenders, you don't really hear much about them. They don't play at the top level as their forwards, for example. Like you don't have a Victor Osimhen in their defense as like that star defender, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and considering Ndidi's not is going to be out, that's a major blow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think yeah, you know what, Nigeria. The reason why I just think Cote d'Ivoire being at home, you know, it's the tournament is in Cote d'Ivoire. I
Mm-hmm.
think that'll give them that extra boost. Um, but yeah, so I think it's gonna be. I think Senegal is my favorites, Morocco in second, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and then Egypt.
Yeah.
Would you have like a dark horse potentially outside the top five that could, you know,
Um
shake things up?
I mean, Egypt would be a number five. I would like to see Tunisia.
Tunisia?
Tunisia could be one, especially if they perform the way they did at the World Cup and they can actually stretch it out over the beyond just the group stage. They don't have a difficult group either. I think they could easily pass their group and that they can make it to the round of 16 quarterfinals, and then who knows? I mean, once you're there, anything can happen really.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
they impressed me at the World Cup despite not making it past the group stage. And they had France, who they actually defeated 1-0, and we're only
Yeah.
talking about a year ago, so it's not like the team has changed much. And they played against Denmark and Australia, so it wasn't an easy group for them by any means.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, I could definitely see Tunisia being like a dark horse. Um, I'd say for me, Tunisia is one of them. I think Cameroon could potentially, like, you know, they have good players all around, and generally they're usually a top nation in Africa. So I'm gonna go for Cameroon as my dark horse.
Fair.
Although they didn't have the greatest opening game, um, they're the type of team like they're very streaky. If they win their next game and potentially upset Senegal, I could see them really getting a big confidence boost and you know
Yeah.
potentially getting into that semifinal or final.
Yeah, but like Nigeria, they have the talent, right? They both have the talent. So Cameroon, the only thing now is, especially since we've now seen them play in that first game, they drew 1-1 against Guinea, and I mean it's not like Guinea is a bad team. They're a pretty decent team,
Yeah,
especially in Africa. So drawing 1-1 against that team, you would have definitely hoped for a win. Against Senegal now, it's going to be a big challenge. They have Gambia, which could be a win. I remember last tournament, Gambia made it to the quarterfinals. It was like a Cinderella run. That was fun to watch. But who knows? And so now with this draw, it's really up to that game against Gambia, unless they can steal a point against Senegal. And I mean, for me, because of that, I don't fancy Cameroon as much. Just especially because of that first game. Had they not played the first game, I would have definitely considered them. But since this game has already been played, I'm just not entirely sure.
No, fair. Honestly, I think it really depends on how they do against Senegal. If they could, get a win versus Gambia, get a draw versus Senegal, that could get the engine going for them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What I really don't want is between Guinea and Cameroon, say they get the same amount of points and it's decided on goal differential, because those are two solid nations.
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And we hate to see clubs, well, I mean, countries or clubs, if we're talking about Champions League, bow out of the tournament because of a goal differential.
Well, now you have like the best third place finish qualifies as well, or the
That is
top.
true. Yes,
I think
yes,
it's the
very
top
true.
four. Yes, the
Top
top
four
four
of six,
third
yeah.
place teams. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
not very true. At least they have that now.
so chances are, you finish third. Chances are that you will qualify to the round of 16.
Yeah, but that's with the third place teams. That's entirely based pretty much on goal differential, because a lot of teams
that's true.
will have the same amount of points, and then it goes down to goal differential. And then I mean, if you have a team who has a very porous defense and they're just hemorrhaging goals, then the team from that group who finishes third will have a huge advantage.
Well, Cameroon don't really concede too much. Usually, they just struggle to score.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that group doesn't have teams that concede much.
Yeah, that's true. Except Gambia.
Gambia, but they played against Senegal. I don't think they're going to be conceding 3-4 goals in their next two games.
Actually, we'll have to wait and see. But this is just like, they've only played one game so far, and actually, like you said, was it Group D and E? Not D and E. E and F haven't played yet.
Exactly.
So we'll have to wait and see. I guess now we'll move on to the Asia Cup. I think that's pretty much it for Afcon.
Yeah, for sure. So as for Asian Cup, I mean, we've already seen a few games played there. It all started on Friday when Lebanon lost 3-0 to Qatar.
Yep.
It was a shame for both of us. And then I mean, since then it had been a slow second day. There were 2-0 draws. Australia defeated India 2-0, and it wasn't as if India were much in the game. Like Australia had that game secured. But then afterwards, there had been a few more games since then. Iran defeating Palestine 4-1. Palestine got their second ever goal in the history of their participation at the tournament. And we've seen the UAE got a pretty solid win against Hong Kong 3-1. Japan also won, if I'm not mistaken, right?
4-2 versus Vietnam.
Yeah.
Kind of, a little surprised they conceded 2 to Vietnam, but still a solid victory. I think like the one that really stands out for me is Jordan versus Malaysia. Jordan getting a 4-0 victory.
Yeah.
That's a little unexpected. Jordan's a decent side, but 4-0 is a little bit, on the crazier side.
I agree. Yeah, I mean,
again, there's still Group F hasn't played yet.
Yeah, they're going to be playing tomorrow. However, once this podcast episode's released, they'll already be played, and there'll already be games from the second match day for the first few groups.
Yeah.
So yeah, the most impressive results I'd say would be Jordan's display. Qatar also. I mean, they're the hosts, defending champions as well. And funny enough, they were actually the hosts because China had to forfeit their rights to host it due to the zero COVID policy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
So in 2022, they had to forfeit their the right to host it. So now Qatar, I think, has hosted it twice in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So honestly, who do you think is gonna win? I think we have a clear favorite at the moment. I don't know if you're thinking the same thing I am.
I mean, Japan's up there. I fancy South Korea though.
Yeah.
I think Son Heung-min. I like Lee Kang-in. He scored 2 goals in their victory against Bahrain. So I fancy that duo, plus with Kim Min-jae at the back.
For sure.
Yeah. And Jürgen Klinsmann is their head coach. I think South Korea could produce some damage in this tournament, and I think they could. They definitely have the capabilities, both offensively and defensively, with Kim Min-jae being the defending Italian defender of the year.
Yeah.
The Serie A defender of the year. I think they have capability against Australia, against Japan, against Saudi Arabia, be it Iran even. They have the capability to defeat any Asian nation, in my opinion. And I think South Korea is up there and they can win. And I think they showed that yesterday or no, today, sorry, this morning against Bahrain, which are probably the second toughest team in their group, and they
Yep,
beat them 3-1 in a very convincing performance.
100%. Yeah, I think South Korea is up there. I just think Japan, considering the form they've been on, I think they're my personal favorites. But then again, anything can happen.
Of
South Korea is a
course.
great side. I just think Japan's a little more balanced and just they're just gelling more, right? I
Mhm.
just think they have that rhythm. They had a decent World Cup. They've I don't know, they've been just smacking teams left and right since then. You know,
Yeah,
they're scoring a crazy amount of goals, and you know they scored four in their opening game. I think Japan would be my favorites, followed by South Korea, and not too far behind them, Australia. You can never count them
of
out in the
course.
Asia Cup. Um, like I think those three teams, it'll be very hard to to pick between them.
Yeah.
But I think they're a shoe in for the semifinals if they don't meet each other before then.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, those would also be my top three, and I mean they're probably the top three for everyone else.
Yeah,
The 4 and 5 that could be maybe some more debatable. Could say. I think the 4 and 5 for me are Saudi Arabia and Iran. I know Qatar has been well rated, especially as hosts, defending champions. However, I do think Iran has the talent, and they definitely possess a little bit more experience, just because sure they haven't won it, but they do possess more experience throughout their careers. Their players are older. They've played in more tournaments like this. They've played in more World Cups as well.
yeah, yeah.
I think I rate Iran higher than Qatar. I think Qatar is probably number 6 with Iran number 5, and for me number 4 is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Actually, yeah, I think Iran. Yeah, I think Iran is a little bit closer to that top three than most people would think. Like I have them just behind
Oh wow,
Australia.
okay, that
Yeah,
high.
I think they're a very good team. They have lots of experience, lots of quality. Um, if anything, I don't. I think the semifinals. If you were to pick the top four teams, I think the semifinals would be Iran, Australia, South Korea, and Japan. With Iran again just right behind them, and I think they could beat any of those teams on their day. Um,
I agree with that. I
like
do agree with that.
they're like, and again, 4-1 against Palestine. Palestine again, not the best team, but still a solid side. They had to qualify to get there. To beat them 4-1, solid performance. And like you said, they've played in multiple World Cups. They've made it far in the Asia Cup on numerous times.
Yeah, not to mention the last World Cup in Qatar last year, when they were one goal away really from making it to the round of 16 in a
Yeah,
group that included England, United States, and Wales, and
yeah,
they also defeated Wales. They
yeah.
only lost 1-0 to England to the USA. And I think England they struggled in their opening match big time, but they definitely found their groove in that second game, and it carried over into their third game. It just unfortunately for them did not culminate in a victory.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, I agree. I just think I just put them a little higher than what most people would have them. Like
Yeah,
Australia, South Korea, and Japan are not that much ahead of Iran. Like very, very slight. Like it's very, very close.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be my top four. If I'm gonna go all, I think Japan's gonna win it. That's my pick. If I'm gonna
I
put
have him
it,
second.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, for me, it's those two by far as well.
by far, really.
Yeah,
I think Australia is up there. Honestly, like the more I think about it, the more I think they're all almost on par. The more I
yeah.
think about it.
Yeah, I'm even thinking like Australia. I mean, they have produced quite a few upsets at the biggest stage, and they just somehow always managed to pull through. You know.
And you know what? Australia has been like since 2015 have been getting better and better every year. They haven't really let off the gas. They've been getting good results. They're on a 5-game winning streak coming into the tournament. Um, I don't know. I think
So they're in good form too.
form
Yeah,
could carry them through, and convincing wins. They haven't conceded a goal in their last 5 games.
their defense is quite known. They,
And
they have a good defense.
and in these type of tournaments, those knockout games, it's usually your defense that
Yeah,
wins you the
it's the
games,
old
right?
say: offense sells tickets, but defense wins you championships.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's hopefully well we'll see, maybe hopefully Australia for their sake it could translate into such, but we'll see what happens. Now I wanted to go over the dark horses for this tournament. We went over a couple for Afcon,
Yeah.
Cup of Nations in Africa. Who do you think is a dark horse? Name one or two countries if you're not sure about one particular.
Honestly, I'm gonna have to go with Qatar just because they're hosts,
Yeah,
and now they have World Cup experience. They've been in the Asia Cup a couple times, and they do have some quality players, star players, most notably Afif. Again, he's no Heung-min Son, he's no Kubo, but he's still a very solid player, right? So
Yeah.
I think given the right circumstances, the right environment, I think they could maybe do something. I'm not saying they're going to win it. It's just in this tournament, it's not like the Afcon. I could see a dark horse winning the Afcon. I have a hard time seeing a dark horse winning the Asia
It's
Cup.
much less balanced.
Exactly. So, if I had to pick one, maybe Qatar. Um, Looking at it now, honestly, I can't really pick a second one. Um,
I have a
yeah,
couple.
maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe.
Oh yeah, because you didn't like I gave a top 5, yeah. So and you only gave a top 4, so that's why you had them a little bit excluded. Like I fancy them to be up there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, as a top 5. However, I did mention Qatar as a possible dark horse, is like pretty much an honorable mention from that top 5. However, I think also the UAE could be
yeah.
a dark horse in that as well. I also believe perhaps, now this is a long shot, but even a country like Jordan could maybe produce something.
Well, given that they started off winning 4-0 against Malaysia, and Malaysia, they're not a well-ranked team at all. They're one of the worst teams in the competition. Their current FIFA ranking, if I just check real quick, they are ranked 130th. So
Yeah,
definitely
I
not a
agree.
well-ranked team. But still, they have to qualify to get there. Beating them 4-0 is no easy feat. So they could potentially do something there. Bahrain in the same group,
Jordan
that'll
versus
be tough.
Bahrain will be interesting.
Yeah, I
That
think.
one will
Well,
be
the winner
interesting.
of that game will probably qualify in second place.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm having a really hard time picking a second dark horse.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, Qatar. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with them. Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Um, Tajikistan, probably not. I
Yeah.
think they might even finish lower than Lebanon in the group.
So who do you? Okay, so since we have a little bit of time here, let's give our like top 2 for each group.
Okay, yeah.
Group A, quick rundown. Group A, who do you have? Number 1, number 2, and then you could even give a number 3, number 4 if
So
you're sure about it.
Qatar, I think Qatar is gonna top the group.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too.
Second place is tough. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to go ahead and say Lebanon because I think Lebanon beats Tajikistan.
I hope so.
Now,
bias, obviously.
Yeah,
bias.
definitely biased, but I think Lebanon beats Tajikistan. And honestly, I don't think there's bias there. I think Lebanon can.
They could.
Beat them,
They
yeah.
could.
I think they're even favorites against them. Now, China's the big one. If we could somehow get a positive result versus China, there you go. That's second place.
I think I can see Lebanon grab 4 points from this. With a win and a draw, I can see that happen. However, with China and Tajikistan already drawing, that's going to be interesting. And now with Lebanon having lost 3-0.
Yeah, exactly. That again, it was that 3-0 was a little bit hard. I feel like Lebanon could have gotten a goal or two out of that game. They had positive moments.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a just complete 3-0 where Lebanon had no chances
Yeah.
whatsoever. So
Qatar number 1, you said? I agree with that. Lebanon number 2.
Yeah, risky, but yeah.
I'm gonna go with my bias here. I'll put them number 2.
Yeah.
And then do we have a 3 or 4? Or we go to the next
China,
one?
Tajikistan.
China, Tajikistan.
I think Tajikistan might lose all their games.
Okay.
Or the rest of their games.
Let's go with that. Group B now.
Group B, Australia first.
Same.
Honestly, between Syria and Uzbekistan.
This is interesting.
I think Uzbekistan will slightly edge it out.
I'm gonna put Syria.
Yeah?
Yeah, especially considering how decent they played in the World Cup qualifying. I'll put them there.
I just think given like the history of both teams, I think Uzbekistan is a slightly better team on paper.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm gonna go for Uzbekistan in second, Syria third, and then India fourth. India's not a well-ranked team at all.
No.
Really surprising for a nation of that size.
Yeah.
Following Group C, I think honestly it might stay the way it is. Iran, UAE, Hong Kong, and Palestine.
Yeah.
Hong Kong and Palestine could interchange potentially, but I think Iran and UAE top the group.
Yeah, I agree with that. And now Group D, I think it's gonna stay the same as it is.
Yeah.
Japan, Iraq, Vietnam, Indonesia.
Iraq seems to be a slightly better team than Vietnam. So when they do play, I do see them winning. And now considering that Iraq got a nice 3-1 win versus Indonesia, that sets them up, +2 goal difference. Well. I think it'll probably stay the same. Again, Indonesia similar situation to India, large nation, over what they're like over 150 million people.
Yeah.
Considering they're that low ranked,
Most populous Muslim nation as
yeah,
well.
yeah, exactly.
And
They're ranked 146th in the
yeah,
FIFA rank. Now, FIFA rankings, you can't always go just based off that.
Yeah.
But when you're ranked past the hundreds, chances are not that great of a team.
yeah, I agree.
But then again, they had to qualify to get there. I'm going to keep saying this. They had to qualify to get there.
They're there for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They had to beat some quality teams, so they deserve to be there. So they're definitely not a bad team, right? Next, Group E. I think South Korea ends up edging Jordan.
Yeah, flip those.
Yeah, Jordan and Bahrain is going to be interesting.
Yes, I agree. But I like I said, I do believe Jordan is going to get that second place.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Especially with a 4-0 victory. Now that gives them obviously +4 goal differential right now after one game. I think that's gonna actually maybe give them the edge because I can see Bahrain and Jordan drawing and then Bahrain beating Malaysia, but I don't think Bahrain is gonna beat Malaysia 4-0.
Probably not. And it's really funny to see Bahrain and Jordan ranked 86th and 87th in the rankings.
Oh wow!
So a very evenly matched team.
That is interesting.
So again, if they get the win there, chances are Jordan will lose to South Korea. So it really depends on if they beat who wins between Bahrain and Jordan. If someone wins, if not, then if they get a draw, chances are Jordan advances in second place.
Yeah. Now on to the last group.
Yeah. So
as of recording,
this one is up in the air. Yeah. I think there's no clear winner.
Yeah, and as of recording as well, there haven't been any games played in this group.
Yeah.
So that's gonna happen tomorrow. I do think Saudi Arabia is number 1.
I think so as well.
And I'm gonna give you number 2 is Oman.
You think Oman over Kyrgyzstan?
Yeah.
I think so as well.
Yeah. Oman have produced a couple of players who have played in higher leagues. I mean, their most iconic player is Ali Al Habsi, the goalkeeper, who played for Wigan Athletic in the Premier League. I mean, other than that, I don't know of anyone in the top leagues, but I know that they've produced some pretty decent players for the region, for the regional upper leagues. I haven't heard too much about Thailand or Kyrgyzstan. But yeah, so I have Oman second, Thailand third, Kyrgyzstan fourth.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. To be honest, Kyrgyzstan fourth. Yeah. Yeah. I think Thailand goes fourth.
Oh, okay.
I think Kyrgyzstan edges out Thailand.
Interesting.
But then again, it depends on the results, and chances are they might lose all their games.
Yeah.
And just draw each other. So it depends how much they lose by. But I think Kyrgyzstan's a slightly better team than Thailand.
Okay. Now, last thing, there are. I don't know if you noticed, there are 6 groups, 4 teams. So that means that we'll have a round of 16 from a 24-team tournament, we'll have a round of 16, the top 2 of each group advance, plus the 4 of the best third teams advance.
Yeah.
Who do you fancy from those third teams that you announced?
I think, well, if Lebanon does finish third, I think they'll be one of the better third teams. We had Syria. Well, I had Syria in third. You had Uzbekistan. I think Syria could possibly make it out. Hong Kong, maybe. Not too sure about them. Bahrain, I think is a very solid team. I think they'll have a decent run there, considering that they're playing Malaysia and Jordan. They can get some goals there. But then again, it's not really like it's hard to tell because it's not really the best third place teams that are gonna win. Like, not the best on paper. It really just depends on the results.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's a little tough to tell, but I'll go for Bahrain. Possibly, Bahrain, Lebanon, Hong Kong, Syria, and there's one more there.
Bahrain, Lebanon, Hong Kong, Syria. You mentioned 4.
Oh, 4.
Yeah. I'll give you my 4, unless you had something to say quickly there.
Yeah, I think that's my final.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll give you my 4. I have Bahrain since Jordan will finish second in my opinion. I'll put as well China.
Yeah.
With Lebanon finishing third, China's going to go up there. Already they have a point. You give them 2 more points and they're guaranteed to go. If you get 3 points, you're pretty much guaranteed to top.
Then again, we're being hopeful about Lebanon here.
Exactly.
Very hopeful. Very biased as well.
If Lebanon do not do well in their next game, I'll still have hope for them to finish third. So keep that in mind, viewers. So I'll have China third, one of them. Uzbekistan the other one, because I mentioned Syria second. That's another one. Vietnam third. I think they'll secure a win in the coming one of their matches. And with that win alone, they're gonna advance. And Bahrain. That's how I see it.
That's solid. That's very solid.
Even though Group F hasn't had a single match played yet as of recording, I think Group F will only see 2 teams.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
as well as Group C.
it's probably the worst group out of all of them.
Yeah,
Again,
in terms of quality, for sure.
Yeah, like there's no bad teams, but compared to the other groups, like there's no top team that you can see can go on to win it, or even like maybe Saudi Arabia as a dark horse.
Yeah,
but yeah, like Group F and Group A are probably the two worst groups in the tournament.
Yeah,
if we're being
I
honest.
agree.
Yeah, so that concludes the Asia Cup. Um, give us your predictions for Afcon in the Asia Cup. Afcon is a little bit harder to predict than the Asia Cup. Asia Cup, in the Asia Cup you have clear favorites, while in Afcon there are clear favorites, but there's a ton of teams that could do damage.
Not to mention that we also had a couple of groups that didn't even play yet.
Yeah, exactly, and like there's a little more quality in the teams in the Afcon compared to the Asia Cup, so it's a little bit harder to really predict, accurately. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this episode. We'll see you next week. We'll be covering a little bit more on the leagues. The leagues are back in action.
Yes.
We'll keep discussing the results from the Asia Cup, Afcon.
For sure, there'll be probably more transfer news as well.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll definitely be covering those next week. So stay tuned, and until then, enjoy the football.